Most people recognize Sun Tzu as a symbol of war, a name linked to generals, battlefields, and motivational quotes pasted onto business posts by people who've never actually read him. He's often portrayed as a philosopher of domination, a master of aggression, someone who decoded how to defeat enemies at any cost. But that version of Sun Tzu is incomplete, and more importantly, it's misleading. Because when you look closely at what he actually wrote, not the slogans, not the modern interpretations, you discover something unexpected. Sun Tzu wasn't obsessed with winning wars. He was obsessed with avoiding their price. Welcome to Wealthime Archive, where history, money, and power intersect in ways most people never notice. If you value deep stories like this, make sure to like the video and subscribe. Now let's begin. Sun Tzu lived in a world that was quietly destroying itself. Late-period ancient China was fractured into rival states locked in near-constant conflict. Every ruler believed unification was just one decisive victory away, and every ruler was wrong. Wars didn't end instability, they multiplied it. Armies grew larger, campaigns lasted longer, and each generation drained more resources than the one before. What began as political rivalry slowly became an economic crisis disguised as military ambition. By Sun Tzu's time, warfare had transformed. It was no longer symbolic or ritualized. It had become industrial. Massive infantry forces replaced aristocratic skirmishes. Entire populations were mobilized. Grain, metal, transport animals, armor, and labor were required at unprecedented scale. War stopped being an event and became a system, one that consumed treasuries faster than they could be replenished. States weren't just fighting enemies, they were burning through their own future. This is the environment Sun Tzu analyzed, not from a place of idealism, but from brutal realism. He understood that every army in the field was effectively a loan taken against the state's survival. Taxes would rise, farms would be abandoned, trade would slow, productivity would collapse, and if victory didn't arrive quickly, the cost alone could destroy the state, even if no enemy ever reached its capital. This is why Sun Tzu's thinking was revolutionary. While others debated honor and courage, he focused on cost. He didn't ask how to fight bravely. He asked whether fighting made financial sense at all. His concern wasn't how many soldiers you could field, but how long your economy could sustain them. In modern terms, Sun Tzu wasn't a warrior philosopher. He was a risk analyst. One of the most misunderstood lines in The Art of War reveals this perfectly. When Sun Tzu says that the highest form of warfare is to subdue the enemy without fighting, he isn't speaking poetically, he's speaking economically. Conflict avoided is capital preserved. Victory achieved through intimidation, diplomacy, intelligence, or speed costs a fraction of what open war demands. For Sun Tzu, that wasn't cleverness, it was survival. He repeatedly warns that prolonged warfare destroys nations from the inside, not because soldiers lose morale, but because societies lose functionality. Fields go unplanted, craftsmen become conscripts, supply routes collapse. The longer the war lasts, the weaker the state becomes, regardless of battlefield success. In this view, time itself is a weapon, and it's usually turned against the one who started the fight. Sun Tzu's obsession with logistics reflects this mindset. He dedicates extensive attention to supply chains, transportation, and provisioning, topics most people skip past. But these sections are the core of his philosophy. Distance increases cost. Movement consumes resources. Every mile an army marches multiplies financial strain. A commander who ignores this isn't bold, he's reckless.
Even intelligence in Sun Tzu's system is an economic tool. Information prevents waste. A single accurate report can save months of marching, tons of grain, and thousands of lives. In modern language, Sun Tzu understood data efficiency. He knew that ignorance forces states to compensate with brute force, and brute force is expensive. Knowledge, by contrast, is cheap. Speed, too, is misunderstood. Sun Tzu praises swift action not because he glorifies aggression, but because delay compounds expense. Every additional day in the field drains reserves. Victory delayed is not neutral, it's costly. Winning quickly through maneuver and deception is cheaper than winning slowly through attrition. This is why Sun Tzu favored flexibility over stubbornness. Adaptation conserves resources, rigidity wastes them. Perhaps his deepest insight lies in what he never praises. He never celebrates destruction. He never romanticizes conquest. Cities captured intact are more valuable than cities reduced to rubble. Populations preserved are more productive than populations crushed. Sun Tzu understood that war doesn't end when armies stop fighting. It ends when the economy recovers. And recovery is impossible if everything has been destroyed in the process. This economic lens explains why Sun Tzu treated warfare as a liability, not an achievement. He believed rulers who enjoyed war were dangerous. Passion, in his view, leads to overspending. Pride leads to escalation, and escalation leads to collapse. States don't usually fall because they lose battles. They fall because they exhaust the systems that support them. History proved him right. States that ignored economic limits chased decisive victories and bankrupted themselves. Others survived by applying Sun Tzu's logic, minimizing engagement, exploiting information, and ending conflicts before costs spiraled. The difference wasn't bravery, it was discipline. What makes Sun Tzu extraordinary is how relevant his thinking remains. Modern wars follow the same pattern, just on a larger scale. Conflicts are entered with confidence and exited with debt. The battles themselves aren't always lost, the budgets are. Empires fracture not when enemies overpower them, but when sustained expenditure hollows them out from within. Sun Tzu would instantly recognize today's world. Military spending, economic sanctions, proxy conflicts, intelligence operations, these are all extensions of his logic. Influence without invasion, pressure without occupation, maximum effect with minimal cost. Modern power operates on the same balance sheet he described centuries ago. The core lesson of the art of war isn't aggression, it's restraint. It's not about how hard to strike, but when striking is affordable. Sun Tzu believed true strength was measured not by domination, but by endurance. A state that preserves resources outlasts one that burns them for short-term victories. In the end, Sun Tzu wasn't teaching how to defeat enemies. He was teaching how to avoid self-destruction. His philosophy wasn't written for warriors chasing glory. It was written for rulers responsible for continuity. For him, stability mattered more than spectacle. Solvency mattered more than triumph. That's why The Art of War isn't really a book about fighting. It's a book about survival. About knowing when power becomes too expensive to use. About understanding that every conflict has a price tag, and that price is often higher than anyone expects. History doesn't repeat itself, but it does send invoices. And the states that fail are usually the ones that never bothered to read the fine print. If this perspective changed the way